Okay, ready for a deep dive into some Christmas controversies?
We're going way beyond just tinsel and carols here.
Yeah, this isn't just about the holiday cheer. We're talking centuries of debate.
Really fascinating stuff.
Yeah, so get ready to maybe shift how you see those twinkling lights.
We're going to unpack why these holiday elements,
Like what?
like the date we celebrate, or the tree, or even Santa.
Oh yeah, those are all pretty central to the whole thing.
Right, they've been flashpoints for these bigger cultural and religious clashes across history.
Huh. So it's not all just peppermint and sugar plums?
Nope, not at all. We're going to uncover what these controversies reveal about how faith and culture and society all kind of like bump up against each other.
I like it. Okay, so first up, let's tackle the date, December 25th. Seems pretty set in stone,
But it might surprise you to learn that the exact date of Jesus' birth
is totally unknown.
Right. It's a mystery. We don't have a definitive date from the historical record.
So how did December 25th become the Christmas?
Well, one theory is this history of religions hypothesis.
Okay, that sounds pretty academic.
It is. It suggests that early Christians might have chosen that date strategically.
Like on purpose?
Yeah, think about the context.
Okay, so back then...
The Roman Empire was this huge mix of different beliefs.
So a lot of different religions going on.
Exactly. And there was already a major Roman festival around December 25th.
What was it?
It was called the Birthday of the Sun, or Sol Invictus, marking the winter solstice.
So the shortest day of the year.
Exactly. So the theory is, by aligning Christmas with this popular festival, it might have made it easier for early Christians to fit into Roman society.
Like, hey, you're already celebrating around this time. Why not add Jesus to the mix?
Yeah, exactly. A bit of a smooth move, you could say.
I mean, it makes sense strategically, but...
Yeah, not everyone was thrilled about this blending of traditions.
Really?
Even way back then, there was pushback.
Wow.
We even see it in the writings of Pope Leo I.
How far back are we talking?
5th century.
Wow, okay, so really early on.
He criticized those who connected Christmas with this pagan sun worship.
Interesting. So even in those early days of Christianity, there was this tension between holding on to the distinct identity of the faith and kind of embracing what was already out there.
Absolutely. It wasn't just everyone agreed, let's party on December 25th.
Yeah, definitely not a simple decision, it sounds like. And there's another theory, right?
Oh, yeah, there's always another theory.
What's this one called?
The calculation hypothesis. It's a bit more of a numbers game.
Okay.
This theory links December 25th to the date some early Christians believed was the date of Jesus' conception.
Which was?
March 25th.
Okay.
The spring equinox. And if you add 9 months to that...
You end up in December.
Yep, right around December 25th.
Interesting. So it really was a deliberate choice, this date.
It seems that way.
Whether it was for this cultural blending or these calculated calendars.
Yeah, fascinating, isn't it?
Okay, now let's fast forward a bit.
God, where are we going?
17th century England, meet the Puritans.
The Puritans.
Not exactly known for their love of a good party.
Definitely not known for their holiday revelry.
And this is where things get really interesting. So picture this, England 1647. The Puritans are in charge, and they decide to...
Cancel Christmas.
They banned it altogether. Could you believe that?
I mean, when you consider their beliefs, it kind of makes sense.
I guess. But why would anyone want to ban Christmas?
Well, the Puritans had very strict religious beliefs. They saw Christmas as too popish.
Do what?
Popish too, influenced by Catholicism and not really in line with their vision of a simpler, more scripture-focused Christianity.
So it was more than just being a Scrooge.
Oh, absolutely. They had these deep theological objections. Plus, they saw a lot of the festivities as excessive and not based on the Bible.
I can see how that would clash with their whole worldview.
Right. And they also viewed some Christmas traditions as disruptive.
Like what?
Think about wassailing.
Wassailing?
Yeah, you know, groups of people going door to door, singing, demanding food and drink.
Oh, yeah.
It could get pretty rowdy.
I can see how that wouldn't really fit with their emphasis on order and piety.
Definitely not. But, you know, that ban didn't exactly go over well with everyone.
I bet not people love their Christmas traditions.
You're right. It actually led to pro-Christmas riots in some cities.
Wow, people were really serious about their holiday.
It shows how deeply ingrained Christmas already was in English culture, even way back then. This desire to celebrate really clashed with the Puritans' vision of a godly society.
Yeah, so we've got ancient Romans blending traditions, Puritans trying to ban the holiday altogether.
Yeah.
Christmas has been stirring things up for a long time.
For centuries.
So where do we go from here on this historical roller coaster?
Hold on tight, because Christmas is about to make a big comeback.
A comeback.
A big one in the 19th century, thanks in part to Queen Victoria and the Victorian era's love of all things traditional.
Ah, so Christmas is back in style.
Back in a big way, and this is where a certain beloved author enters the scene.
Charles Dickens.
You got it.
I can practically hear the bah humbug echoing already.
Exactly, and while Christmas was already seeing a revival, Dickens' iconic story, A Christmas Carol, really shaped its modern image.
Oh yeah, Dickens was a master storyteller.
He was a genius. He tied the holiday to these ideas of charity, family togetherness, social harmony. We could call it the Carol philosophy.
Yeah, it's all about kindness and generosity and goodwill.
Exactly, and it resonated really deeply with the Victorian audience.
So Dickens wasn't just telling a good story. He was actually influencing how people viewed the whole holiday.
He gave us this heartwarming lens to view Christmas through.
But there's a flip side to this, right?
There's always a flip side.
What's a catch?
Well, we have to remember that this romanticized Victorian Christmas was also the beginning of something else.
Oh no, what?
The commercialization of the holiday.
So that focus on buying gifts and all the consumerism that we see even more of today.
Exactly, those seeds were sown during this era.
The double-edged sword of Christmas heartwarming traditions, but also big business. I wonder how those early Christians debating the date would feel about our 21st century version.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Okay, speaking of clashes, let's jump to a totally different scene. Christmas in the officially atheist Soviet Union.
Oh, yeah, this is a fascinating chapter.
I bet totally different from Victorian England.
Imagine this Christmas celebrations were completely banned.
No way really banned.
Banned. They had this group called the League of Militant Atheists.
Okay, that sounds intense.
They actively campaigned against any kind of religious tradition, Christmas included.
Wow, a real war on Christmas before the phrase even existed.
You could say that.
But didn't Christmas eventually make a comeback in Russia?
That's the interesting part. They eventually reintroduced a lot of the Christmas traditions.
Silly.
But they cleverly tied them to New Year's Day.
So they kept the traditions, but kind of stripped away the religious meaning.
Exactly. It was a way to let people celebrate while still holding on to their official stance on atheism.
That's pretty clever, actually.
It was a strategy they used in other communist regimes, too.
Wow, so even when they tried to suppress it, that holiday spirit found a way to adapt and endure.
It really does show the power of tradition.
Okay, before we tackle the modern war on Christmas, let's clear up another controversy, the whole Xmas debate.
Oh, yeah. Xmas.
Some people see it as this attack on Christmas.
Right. It's like a code for something sinister.
Yeah, but is it really?
Well, this is a classic example of how not knowing the historical context can really fuel a controversy.
So there's more to the story.
Way more using X to abbreviate Christ.
The letter X.
Yeah, well, the Greek letter chi.
Oh, hey.
That's been a Christian tradition since the early days.
So Xmas isn't some modern plot to secularize Christmas.
Not at all. It's actually rooted in Christian tradition. You can find X used as early Christian writings and iconography.
Really?
Yeah, it often represents Christ or the cross. So Xmas might look secular on the surface, but it has these deep religious roots.
Xmas is more traditional than we realize. Much more. Mystery solved. Okay, let's jump into the modern era. And the big one, the war on Christmas.
Here we go.
It feels like this uniquely American phenomenon.
It definitely seems to have taken root in the U.S.
Yeah, it's become this yearly cultural flashpoint. We see it everywhere, from debates over what retailers say on their signs to legal battles over religious displays.
You see it everywhere.
But it's not just about Merry Christmas versus Happy Holidays, is it?
You're right. It feels like it's tapping into something much deeper.
Yeah, like a lot of anxieties about the changing cultural landscape, the role of religion in public life.
And what tradition even means in today's world.
Yeah, like is inclusivity erasing our cultural heritage, or are we moving towards a more tolerant society?
These are big questions.
With no easy answers.
Right. And Christmas, because it's so deeply embedded in our culture, it becomes this battleground for all these anxieties and tensions to play out.
So it's not just about Santa and presents. It's about how we understand ourselves and our relationship to tradition and change.
It's about who we are.
That's a really thought-provoking way to look at it. Okay, so we've explored centuries of Christmas controversies. We've seen how these debates reflect these bigger anxieties about tradition, change, identity. But let's bring it back to the listener.
Okay.
Why should they care about all this history of these Christmas conflicts?
That's a great question. I think knowing the historical context helps us engage with these issues in a more nuanced and informed way. It reminds us that these debates are not new. They've been around for centuries, and there's no easy answers.
So instead of just reacting emotionally to the latest War on Christmas headline, we can step back and consider the bigger picture.
Exactly. We can ask ourselves, what are the values and beliefs behind these debates? How have these issues played out in the past? What lessons can we learn from history?
It helps us think critically and avoid those easy us versus them narratives.
Right. It reminds us to be respectful of different perspectives, even if we don't agree with them, because ultimately, regardless of how we choose to celebrate or how we say happy holidays, the goal should be to create a society where everyone feels respected and valued.
Well said. Okay, so what's next on our deep dive into Christmas controversies? Where do we go from here?
Well, we've covered a lot of ground historically, but there's still so much to unpack in part two. We're going to shift gears and delve into the specific arguments and perspectives that are fueling this modern war on Christmas debate.
Oh, so we're going to dive into the trenches of the culture wars. Buckle up, listeners. It's going to be a fascinating ride.
It is. It's interesting you say that because this whole war on Christmas thing sometimes pops up in the most unexpected places. Like, let's talk about coffee cups.
Coffee cups?
Yeah, specifically those Starbucks red cups.
Oh, yeah, those plain red cups.
From back in 2015.
I remember that causing a bit of a stir online.
It was everywhere.
But how did coffee cups become a battleground in the war on Christmas?
Well, some people saw those minimalist cups as like a deliberate attempt by Starbucks to erase Christmas imagery.
Really? Just a plain red cup?
Yeah, and some pretty influential figures were speaking out about it, too. They felt like the company was trying to be politically correct and avoid offending non-Christians.
Which they saw as an attack on Christmas itself?
Exactly.
Wow. So a plain red cup became a symbol of the culture wars.
It really did. It highlights how sensitive this whole topic is for some people.
Yeah, I can see that.
Even subtle changes can be seen as part of this perceived war on Christmas.
And social media definitely amplifies these things.
Oh, absolutely. Remember, this was right around the time when social media was really starting to shape public discourse.
You're right, those red cups were all over my feed.
Everyone had an opinion.
It felt like it. So did Starbucks cave to the pressure. Did they bring back the reindeer and snowflakes?
Not really. They stuck with their minimalist design.
Really?
Yeah, they even defended it, pointing out that the color red has long been associated with Christmas.
I mean, that's true.
And they emphasized that their stores still had plenty of other Christmas-themed merchandise.
So they kind of acknowledged the concerns but didn't totally back down.
It was a strategic move.
It seems like companies are always walking this tightrope, trying to be inclusive, while also recognizing the cultural significance of Christmas.
It's a tough balance to strike, for sure.
Okay, coffee cups aside, are there any other surprising war on Christmas skirmishes you've come across?
Oh, there are plenty. Think about the debates over school Christmas concerts.
Oh, yeah. Those.
In some places, there's been pushback against those traditional concerts that focus heavily on religious songs and themes.
I can see why that would be an issue.
Some parents and community members argue that those concerts exclude students from other religious backgrounds or those who don't celebrate Christmas.
That's a valid point. Schools want to celebrate the holidays, but they also have to be mindful of their diverse student body.
Exactly. It's a tricky situation.
So how have schools tried to navigate this?
Some have opted for more secular winter holiday concerts that focus on broader themes like winter snow, giving,
Or general winter stuff.
Right. They might incorporate songs from different cultures and traditions to be more inclusive.
So everyone feels included.
Other schools try to strike a balance by including a mix of secular and religious songs in their concerts.
Trying to represent different viewpoints.
Exactly.
Sounds like there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Definitely not. Each community has to figure out what works best for them.
It's an ongoing conversation for sure.
It is, and these debates are likely to continue as society becomes more diverse and we figure out how to balance tradition with inclusivity.
Yeah, it's a challenge that goes way beyond Christmas, really.
It's about how we deal with difference in a world that's constantly changing.
It's interesting how we often frame the war on Christmas as this modern conflict. But as we've seen, pushback against Christmas celebrations has a long history.
Absolutely. We talked about the Puritans banning Christmas back in the 17th century, but opposition goes back even further.
Really, how far back?
Believe it or not, some early Christian groups actually opposed celebrating Christmas altogether.
Wait, really early Christians? Why would they be against celebrating the birth of Jesus?
Well, some of them believed that it was wrong to celebrate a human birth.
Even Jesus's birth?
Even Jesus's, they felt that the focus should be solely on his death and resurrection.
because those events are central to the Christian faith.
Exactly. Celebrating a birthday felt too pagan, too worldly to them.
So they saw it as a distraction from the core message of Christianity.
Yeah, they felt the emphasis on celebration and festivity kind of took away from the solemnity of Christ's sacrifice.
Interesting. So even within Christianity, there have always been these different interpretations and disagreements about Christmas.
Always.
It's a good reminder that there's never been one single view of Christmas, even from the very beginning.
Right from the start, there have been different perspectives.
So we've got ancient Christians debating the very idea of celebrating Christmas, Puritans trying to ban it outright, and the modern war on Christmas playing out in all these unexpected ways.
It's a wild ride.
It seems like this holiday has always been a lightning rod for controversy.
It really has, and I think that speaks to something deeper than just the holiday itself, you know?
What do you mean?
Well, Christmas is so deeply ingrained in our culture that it becomes this symbolic battleground where we play out all these bigger societal anxieties and tensions.
So Christmas is more than just a holiday. It's a reflection of how we view the world and our place in it.
Exactly. It's a microcosm of all these larger debates about tradition, faith, inclusivity, even consumerism.
Wow, that's a really insightful way to think about it. It's not just about Santa and presents. It's about how we understand ourselves and our relationship to tradition and change.
And how we deal with those things that make us uncomfortable.
Okay, so we've journeyed through centuries of Christmas controversies. We've seen how these debates reflect these bigger anxieties about tradition, change, and identity. But before we move on, is there anything else we should add to our historical timeline of Christmas conflicts? What about the Christmas tree?
The Christmas tree, that evergreen symbol of holiday cheer.
Can't forget the tree.
Right. But even that has had its share of controversy.
Really? The tree?
Oh, yeah. It might seem harmless enough now, but those pagan roots have made some people uneasy throughout history.
Huh. So even the tree has a controversial past.
And of course, the Soviet Union had their own unique take on the Christmas tree.
Oh, I bet they did. They seem to have a complicated relationship with everything related to Christmas. So what did they do with the Christmas tree?
Well, as part of their efforts to suppress religion, they initially banned Christmas trees altogether.
No Christmas trees allowed.
But then in a clever move, they reintroduced them as New Year's trees.
Ah, so they secularized the symbol just like they did with other Christmas traditions.
Exactly. They tried to keep the cultural aspects of Christmas while stripping away the religious meaning.
A bit like those Starbucks red cups, come to think of it.
Right. It shows how even something as simple as a tree can get caught up in these complex cultural and political debates.
Yeah, and it's not just the Soviets either. I remember hearing about debates in the U.S. over whether it's appropriate to display Christmas trees in public spaces like government buildings or schools.
Exactly. Some people argue that it's a religious symbol and that displaying it on public property violates the separation of church and state.
It's the same argument we see with nativity scenes and other religious displays.
Absolutely. It all comes down to where do we draw the line between acknowledging tradition and maintaining a separation between religion and the state.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
And it's also important to remember that not everyone celebrates Christmas.
Oh, right, of course.
For some religious groups, Christmas isn't part of their faith tradition, and they might have theological reasons for not participating in the festivities.
So it's not always about feeling attacked or excluded. It's about adhering to one's own beliefs.
Right.
I think the war on Christmas narrative often overlooks that fact that for many people, not celebrating Christmas is a matter of faith and personal conviction.
It's about respecting religious diversity and recognizing the right of individuals and groups to choose how and what they celebrate.
That's an important point. We've been focusing on the debates within Christianity, but it's crucial to remember that Christmas isn't a universal holiday.
Absolutely. For instance, Jehovah's Witnesses and some Seventh-day Adventist groups choose not to celebrate Christmas based on their interpretation of the Bible.
And of course, for those of Jewish, Muslim, or other faiths, Christmas has no religious significance.
Exactly. So it's not just about Christmas versus no Christmas. It's about respecting a wide range of beliefs and practices.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've journeyed through centuries of Christmas controversies. We've seen how these debates reflect these bigger societal anxieties about tradition, change, and identity. But let's bring it back to you, the listener. Why should you care about all this history of these Christmas conflicts?
I think understanding the historical context helps us engage with these issues in a more nuanced and informed way. It reminds us that these debates aren't new. They've been around for centuries, and there are no simple answers.
So instead of just reacting emotionally to the latest war on Christmas, headline, we can step back and consider the bigger picture.
Exactly. We can ask ourselves, what are the underlying values and beliefs that are driving these debates? How have these issues played out in the past? What lessons can we learn from history?
It encourages us to think critically and avoid those simplistic us versus them narratives.
Right, and it reminds us to be respectful of different perspectives, even if we don't agree with them. Because ultimately, regardless of how we choose to celebrate or how we say happy holidays, the goal should be to create a society where everyone feels respected and valued.
All right, so we've time traveled through Christmas controversies, past ancient Rome, the Soviet Union.
Quite a journey.
It has been, but now let's face the modern-day war on Christmas. Head on.
Time to unpack those arguments.
Yeah, those arguments that fly faster than Santa's sleigh on Christmas Eve.
Exactly. And remember, we're not here to pick sides or anything.
Right, this isn't about declaring a winner.
We're just exploring, the logic and the emotions behind these debates.
So we can all understand those nuances.
And maybe even see things from a new perspective.
Exactly. Think of this as like your toolkit for forming your own informed opinions.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, so let's start with those who say there's this deliberate effort to, erase Christmas.
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
What are their concerns? What are they worried about?
Well, one big one you hear is about saying happy holidays instead of Merry Christmas.
Yeah, that's a classic.
Right. They see it as diminishing the holiday's Christian origins.
Like it's somehow less Christian if you say happy holidays.
To them, it feels like a secularization of Christmas, a concession to political correctness.
Which they feel waters down the true meaning of the holiday.
Exactly.
So it's not just about the words themselves, but what those words represent.
Right. It's about preserving the cultural and religious heritage of Christmas.
Which is a really big part of their identity and values.
Absolutely.
So they're arguing that Christmas, at its heart, is a Christian holiday celebrating the birth of Jesus.
And that shouldn't be ignored or diluted.
I can see how that could be frustrating if you feel like that core message is getting lost.
Definitely. And they often point to the commercialization of Christmas as further evidence of this war,
Like all the shopping and Santa and secular decorations.
Yeah, they see that as overshadowing the religious aspect.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, but what about those who advocate for using inclusive language, like happy holidays?
Right. What's their side of the story?
Yeah, what's their reasoning?
Well, they argue that using inclusive language just acknowledges the reality of our diverse society.
Right. Not everyone celebrates Christmas.
Exactly. And for them, saying happy holidays is a way to respect those who might have different religious beliefs.
Or no religious beliefs at all.
Right.
So it's about recognizing that Christmas isn't a one-size-fits-all experience.
Exactly. We share this time of year with people from all sorts of backgrounds.
And they would argue that using inclusive language doesn't take away from the meaning of Christmas for those who do celebrate it.
Right. It's just a gesture of goodwill and inclusivity.
Trying to create a more welcoming and tolerant society.
Where everyone feels seen and respected no matter their beliefs.
Okay, so both sides have valid points, which is why it gets so heated, I guess.
Yeah, you're talking about people's deeply held beliefs and values.
It's not just about semantics, it's about identity tradition and the kind of society we want to live in.
And those tensions, they extend beyond just language, too.
Oh yeah, like what?
Think about the debate over religious displays in public spaces, like nativity scenes or menorahs.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Right. It taps into those same anxieties about inclusivity and the role of religion in society.
Okay, so break it down for me. What are the arguments there?
Well, those who support these displays often say they're part of our shared cultural heritage.
Like they're not forcing anyone to believe anything.
Exactly. They see it as celebrating the diversity of our religious traditions.
And they might also argue that it's a free speech issue,
Right. That banning these displays infringes on their First Amendment rights.
Okay, I can see that side. But what about those who oppose religious displays in public spaces?
Well, they argue that displaying religious symbols on public property, especially in places like schools or government buildings, it sends the message that one religion is favored over others.
Like it's not neutral.
Right, and they see it as a violation of the separation of church and state.
And potentially excluding those who don't belong to that particular faith.
Right, it can make some people feel like outsiders.
Which goes against the whole idea of inclusivity.
Exact.
So again, we come back to this central tension. How do we balance tradition with inclusivity?
It's the million-dollar question.
How do we create a society that respects both individual beliefs and these shared cultural values?
Yeah, there are no easy answers.
Nope. But at least understanding the history and the different perspectives is a good starting point.
Absolutely. It allows us to have these conversations in a more informed and respectful way, even when we disagree.
It's about recognizing the complexity and resisting those overly simplistic narratives.
Right, avoiding those black and white us versus them traps.
Exactly. Well, we may not be able to solve the war on Christmas,
Probably not.
but hopefully this deep dive has given you something to think about.
A new way to look at things.
Yep. It's a reminder that even something as seemingly simple and joyful as Christmas can be surprisingly complex and controversial.
And that's what makes it so fascinating. It really is a window into our cultural values, our religious beliefs, our anxieties about the world around us.
As we've seen, the meaning of Christmas has been debated for centuries. So what does this holiday mean to you today? How does that meaning connect to all these historical tensions we've been talking about? Something to ponder as you hang those stockings or light that menorah?
Happy holidays, everyone!